The views expressed in this presentation are those of the hosts and guests and do not represent the views of any lodge, Grand Lodge, appended body, or any other person or persons whomsoever.
Brethren, we are at Refreshment.
I'm a cool guy, right? You know, we're cool. He's like, yeah. How weird.
Like that, just a bunch of old guys eating hashed over crock pot food. And well, you're just not high enough up in the conspiracy.
Oh, yeah. And the potentate is right where you are. And what does he do? He just starts laughing his ass off. Welcome to the At Refreshment Masonic Video Podcast. I'm your host, Wesley Reuter. Let's introduce everyone else. We got over here
Brock from Raven 303, confirmed.
Yoshi, Villa Park Lodge, number 1113.
Marty, Alcohol Shaman, Mahalo and Namaste, and I'm looking at the camera. The producer told me to.
And once again, we are here at the Trowel Club at Manny's Ale House in Elmhurst, Illinois, having a few libations. And it's 2020. What's been going on, guys?
None. We just got done watching a great fight over the weekend.
Yeah, if you guys didn't catch that, well, kind of embarrassed yourself.
Yeah, we embarrassed ourselves pretty well on that. But hey, you know what? It's a good time. I mean, you know, at Refreshment, we're, you know, brothers chilling with brothers, you know, and our family and friends. You know, I mean, it was a great night.
First great fight of 2020. So
Yeah.
Actually, you know, it's been a good kickoff to 2020, the year of perfect division, to be honest with you guys. And it's, as of Lunar, whenever this posts up, I'm not sure, but we're about to experience next week it's coming up Lunar New Year for the Chinese friends.
Yep.
But it's kind of going to be sad to see the last New Year celebration end, because we came into this this year kind of, I want to say like
we're
a
not
wrecking
celebrating
ball.
New Year's anymore?
Well, I mean, not for 2020. It's over. Once the Chinese wrap it up next week, we're just hit the ground
Still
running.
got one more celebration to go.
Yeah. Either way, I'm having a good time.
So with that, as usual, we have a guest for you. And
Another guest.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, another guest. We're going to be talking about...
The show's starting to reek that we ran out of ideas, because everyone's like, we got another guest for you.
No, we got ideas.
This one could
We've got ideas listed right here. We're just all too lazy to research them.
This could be our most esoteric episode yet.
I think
It very well could be.
the guest we have recently did the education for our Royal Arch chapter St. John's Day.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I really got the chance to get acquainted with this brother. And I'm more than excited for what we're about to have tonight. Why are you looking at me confused?
I just am. Gerald Fortune, come on in. Yeah! Thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, bro.
So, you know, one thing I want to mention real quick is that Masonry can be a very big world, but sometimes a very small world. And we found that out again today because you actually shop at Marty's father's shop.
One of my favorite stores. Actually, my favorite Alchemy store in the city, Alchemy Arts.
Yeah, Bryn Mawr and Broadway. There's an old guy in there. Looks like half Harry Potter, half a car mechanic. Go hit him up.
He looks like Papa Smurf.
No, hold on. I got
Papa Smurf?
He looks like a real life version of Papa Smurf.
Look at, wait. If we're going to talk about his old man, I'm going to say this. I remember the first time that he took me over there. I've never met the man. And he's like, oh, man, wait till you meet my old man. And I walk into this store, and I see him just sitting there like this. And it was like looking into the future. And I looked at I'm like, holy cow. Like the whole time we were riding home, I'm like, bro, you are your father's son, dude. It was scary. Not only does he look like him, but he's got mannerisms. Or mannerisms? Is that
Mannerisms?
mannerisms? I was like, what? It's hilarious.
Did you sit in the chair when you were there?
No, I didn't sit in that chair.
What? That was the first thing I did when I got
Yeah, in the chair.
I was like, let me sit in that chair.
Dude, everybody wants to sit in that
Let me
chair,
feel that
dude.
brass over here. What's it? It's made of brass, right?
Yeah, why
The
not?
brass on your ass.
Oh,
Yeah.
So, alchemy. How did you get interested in alchemy? It's not a common thing for most people to get into nowadays. You hear it tossed around and everything. How did you get into it?
Well, I think religion kind of failed me.
Okay.
So I was looking for something that had more of a direct connection with the creator. So, and with alchemy, it deals with not about changing the world to suit you. It's about changing you. And what that does is bring you in closer proximity with the creator, as opposed to existing solely through the ego program, which means it is based on the will to receive. Me. So what alchemy does, it kind of switches the dials in there.
Okay.
So now, and then what it does is it elevates you to a will of bestowing as opposed to the will of receiving.
So it's not just all about the potions, and you see like how they portrayed John Dee in some of the Elizabeth movies and stuff like that,
Well,
with the dry eyes coming out and everything, all that stuff.
With Kabbalah in itself, all of those are different components to it. So if you go back into ancient times, they did use different potions and scents and herbs because those things do affect the physical body in a way, and it transforms consciousness in various ways. But based on our belief system, it gets corrupted as it comes in. So science says that the physical body is 99.9% empty space. So when we smell different things or when we scrub with different things, that empty space is then being filled up with that scent, which is that empty space is technically where the light goes.
Okay. Did you have something? I know I kind of cut you off.
Well, I was just going to talk about some of the, the older stuff, like in Germany back in the day, how they used to have just rows of alchemists, and how alchemy and like hermetic sciences and stuff like that was a key philosophy in a lot of people's lives. And it was a select few people, that could afford to live that lifestyle and to do stuff, or were good enough to be able to, sell their remedies and oils and stuff like that. But, when I think of alchemy, I immediately think of like the Philosopher's Stone, or I think of the lead to gold.
Yeah. Well, that concept, the Philosopher's Stone, by the way, Germany is like an important stop on if you go back from Egypt through Greece and Rome, and you trace it up from Egypt, it's alchemy. And then as it hits Greece, it becomes Hermeticism, and then it goes in through medieval Europe, and then it makes an important stop in Germany. And then we see that played out with the unfortunate episode of Nazism, but with a particular science, Werner von Braun, if you remember him.
Yeah.
Remember,
the NASA scientist.
Yes, he was really big into the occult. And it was his adaptability with the occult that propelled NASA to, and as a result, the United States to be in the front of the space age because of his ability to understand the occult.
Was during that time wasn't he part of the Thule?
The Thule Society.
Okay.
Yeah, the Thule Society, and they believed that it was vitriol. Is what it was the name for the formula. It was vitriol. So if you take that same word vitriol and you take it over to India, now it's Kundalini. Or if you take it to China, it's or Japan, it's Reiki. Okay. But what it is, it's the life force, and more specifically, it's the vitriol is built and refined through the practice of semen retention. So exactly. So this is
I'm not trying to retain any of mine. I'm trying to give it away.
So it's like an oil refining process. It doesn't mean no sex, but it does mean semen retention.
Like some sting shit.
Right. And so that changes the whole consciousness that you're able to.
Actually, there's a chart you could actually do that you could find out how often you're supposed to release. I think I'm about every 9 days when I did mine.
Wow. We're going off a little bit, but there was just one book, and I seen it. I think it was like HBO Real Sex when they used to do that stuff in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
And there was this one guy, and he was like in his 80s, and he wrote a book, The Unejaculate Lover. And this guy had a couple women just dogging him around, and he's this like old 80-year-old guy. He's like, I never ejaculate. I please these women all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, God bless him.
Yeah,
He's got the power, man. Yeah, he's probably a mystic sage out here.
I have no idea. It was years ago, but it was odd. And
I know we laughed about it and everything, but no, I mean there are there's a lot of studies. There's a lot of different I don't know the words. I don't have the word for it.
I'll just make one up.
Yeah,
I know.
Just make
Just the groups, different groups that study different things. I mean that's real. Things that they learn or they train their body to do, and you know
what's actually funny though? How society, how the greatest ideas man has ever had in 2020 remanifest as a meme.
Yeah.
Because the general idea behind that, and I don't want to spend this whole episode talking about ejaculation because I think we'd lose some fans. But I mean, think about it. Maybe gain some.
They're not listening.
Yeah, I know. But if you think about it, No Nut November. The same concept between No Nut November is the same principle that was passed down through there. I'm telling you.
No, you're right though.
Yeah,
that makes sense. It really does.
It is though, but it's we joke about it and people laugh at it, but semen retention or No Nut November, this gives you a different power as a lover. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you're not having sex, it's that you're not sprinting anymore. Mm-hmm. There's anytime you make love to your wife, there's no immediate expectation of a payoff. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? That has nothing to do with her. She has no semen to retain. Mm-hmm. So the more you retain, the better lover you become. Now that's just a side effect of it, because the real purpose of it is to then meditate that semen into your spinal fluid.
Yeah.
That and that's a lot of what the ancient arts was about, is meditating it into the spine.
When you said that, it reminded me of something else. Have you ever heard of living by light? This concept that you just
eat
well, you don't eat. You
food.
Literally don't eat.
Yeah.
And there's a guy that's a scientist. At the time, he was doing it for 6 years. He thought it was a bunch of BS, and then he did it, and he swears he hasn't eaten in like 6 years. And there's another guy in India. And they put him in a hotel for like a week or two, and they're like, no, we're gonna do this, show that it's all a trick and everything. And they show his belly filling up with urine, and they're like, well, he's gonna go to the bathroom, he has to,
right? And
they start watching his body, and urine just starts moving throughout his body, it basically giving him energy or nutrition. It's just very, very bizarre.
It also kind of goes to, as a man, sometimes we're kind of tricked and thinks this has control over us when it doesn't.
Right.
We have control over this machine that our soul, our essence, our power is harnessed within.
Oh yeah. And that statement right there goes to the heart of studying Kabbalah.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it causes a fragmentation process between the self and the ego. So without intentional ego work, we never realize that we're stuck into seeing everything from ego's perspective. Until you start doing intentional ego work, then you transcend that limited perspective. And so the ego itself is a completely different source of intelligence than what we are, but we're so programmed to listen to it. So like, for example, if you take the word individual, and it is actually a word that means an indivisible duality, the same concept we use to explain our country, indivisible, etc.
Yeah.
So, but to separate that ego.
Well, what's even funnier, and I'm kind of the same way that I just juxtaposed with No Nut November.
Right.
This same thing was also hidden us in plain sight with the case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
It's the same idea, where all these life lessons throughout time, they're always packaged in a lot of ways, and intelligent people always find a way to slip them in there for the layman in a lot of aspects.
And it's not just intelligent people; it's Masons.
Always Masons.
It's Masons that are doing it in different walks of life, through the music industry, through the movie industry, through banking, through finance, through these different places where you see these little pockets of light. It's because Mason / Kabbalist is in that position and they beam out that light.
Yeah, I read one Kabbalah book that he gave me. It was more about meditation. So how does meditation work with Kabbalah? Because I'm getting into meditation now because I realize I gotta like really freaking calm down. So I just kind of if I hear something, I hear it, just relax, whatever. But like the book that you gave me, it talks about getting your mind set for the different circles or shields and however they're stated in Kabbalah. Okay. And you move from one to one. Is that something you do or you're familiar with?
Yeah, that's a concept of like path work.
Yep.
And so how meditation facilitates that whole process is what happens is if you have you ever heard of the 4-4-4 breathing pattern, which is a book that was written by Aleister Crowley?
No.
It's called 4-4-4.
Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
And so
He's like, ear to ear.
yeah, he was, Aleister Crowley's controversial, but his body of work can't be disputed. He was legit. Aside from everything else that's going on.
No, I do give him that. I haven't read much of his work or anything all the way through.
The carnival aspect of Aleister Crowley really overshadowed the lucid side of it. The show became bigger.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation. If you want to get
he probably
into,
started believing his own ego.
He started drinking his own Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
But back to the meditation question you asked. He wrote a book called 4-4-4, and it's simply put, it's breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds. Now, what this does is it puts you into the heartbeat rhythm of the planet.
Okay.
Now you can read
I've heard that phrase before.
Yeah, the planet has its own heartbeat, and what that breathing pattern is, it times you out with that. And what it does is it allows you to receive more consciousness or light. So the thing that stops it is the thought forms that keeps passing through our sphere of influence while we're trying to meditate.
Yeah, and it did mention that.
Yeah, those thought forms will keep passing through that sphere of influence. And so what happens is, as we're just beginning and we're completely married to the ego, what we think is that those thoughts matter and that those thoughts are generated from us or that they're anything important, and they're not. And so the longer you hold that meditation position, what happens is you start seeing the irrelevance of those thoughts, and then you just float into emptiness. Now, I'm stating it simply, but it does take time.
Well, it's kind of like that flow state, like if you're working out or something like that, and you access that. And you got to think also, Crowley came up as a mountain climber and a mountaineer. So, when he was doing some of these things, he was using these practices and he was learning them from the people that were, like Buddhist monks and people that lived in the mountains that he was going
right, especially
I don't know, what do they call the Sherpas or something?
Yeah, they're the ones that help you up the mountain.
Yeah,
Sherpas are the ones that help you
So
up
they
the
would be
mountain.
teaching him things and exercising. He would see him practicing these things, and so he started learning them. And then, you get into these certain states where you just start flowing and you get synchronized with the planet. And like you're saying, you have all these things, but your mind can just go silent to where, you can actually take in and just be.
It's almost like when sports athletes, whether professional or amateur, talk about that zone. There's just something. It's like a tunnel, but it's not a tunnel.
Yeah.
And you just know, you basically can foresee just about every play that's happening, and it doesn't happen every game.
That's what it is. It's that
It's
flow.
basically that.
It's that flow, and what happens is, in your left brain area, as you are practicing or building on craft, whatever that may be, if you're a basketball player or if you're a writer or if you're a musician, you are building on craft. On the right brain side, you are working on that state of Zen, that flow. And what happens is so if you go back far enough into Hermeticism, you will see the divine masculine, the divine feminine in the art, and then you'll see the baby in the middle. Now, what that art form represents...
Reminds me of the square and compass real quick.
Yeah, because what happens is that baby now represents the state of flow. So when you're Michael Jordan and you put in 10,000 hours of practice and then all of a sudden you hit that zone, what's happening is a higher force is carrying you through this basketball game. Whenever you see Michael Jordan just hit so many shots, all of a sudden he was like, I don't even know what's happening.
Yeah, I remember that Portland series. What was it, game 2?
Flu game.
Yeah,
No, it wasn't
the flu game.
No, it wasn't the flu game. It's where he scored 35 in the first half. And
Right.
I don't know what's going on.
I'm hot tonight, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that wasn't really showing my age. No, Michael Jordan's still playing basketball. Dude.
Right. That's right. I should have said Kobe Bryant.
Yo,
I
Shaq,
should
what
have
up?
used Kobe Bryant.
Hey, Shaq, Shaq.
Yeah, we should have said Shaq instead of Michael Jordan. Yeah.
But with that, we're going to have to take a break, and we'll be right back with more.
And there was glass in there too. That was a whole other situation.
Yeah. All right, everyone, we're back. Obviously, we're talking during the break, and Brock had some questions, so shoot them over to Gerald for us.
All right. Well, I just wanted to talk about some of the relations between Kabbalah, tarot, and astrology.
Okay. Well, Kabbalah, the visual schematic for Kabbalah would be the tree of life. And so to study the tree of life, it has the 22 pathways. The tarot card system is actually meant to lay out over the tree of life so you can understand the paths of energy and the relationships between them. So if you think about it in terms of a macrocosm and a microcosm, the tree of life, as we look at it on a sheet of paper, represents the macrocosm of the solar system, the even larger macrocosm of the universe, and the smaller microcosm of the levels of consciousness inside of man. And so with the tarot card system, you lay it out where you have the 4 suits and the court cards, etc. These lay out on the tree of life to help you understand what's going on inside of you and what's going on inside of the world.
Yeah. Well, so I know that I personally use the Crowley Thoth deck as my tarot deck. So I know that there's only a few tarot decks out there where the 22 major arcana cards actually are represented with an astrological sign on the card for quick reference. And I know that we've kind of said a few things about Crowley, but that is one of the only tarot decks out there, or one of the first ones to actually make that connection. Stems from the research from LFS Levy bringing the tarot and Kabbalah together.
Right. Yeah. Well, I personally use Aleister Crowley's Thoth deck. To me, that's the preeminent deck.
Yeah.
So it encompasses, and if you look in it, you'll see a lot of Egyptian iconography
Absolutely.
in there, and you'll see some Hermetic iconography in there. And so Aleister Crowley, what he said was, I think it was in the Book of the Law, where he said that he manifested that consciousness on his honeymoon in the King Chamber of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
Now, judging by the body of work he left with the Thoth deck, it's legitimate, because if you compare the Thoth deck across any aspects of ancient alchemy, ancient Hermeticism, or any of it, it matches up point for point.
Absolutely.
So,
and I think when him and it was Lady Frida Harris, right?
She did the painting.
She did the painting. So there was multiple times where, and another thing about that tarot deck is it's very geometric. It has a lot of sacred geometry also tied into the cards. and you don't really think about it, but when you research old tarot history, like in the 1600s and stuff, when rich Italian families were really doing this kind of stuff, there were parade cars and stuff that they'd have called like these trumps or whatever as they would go through. So they'd have the death one. It'd be like a little float that would come by and stuff. So they would, in front of the things, they would hold these images, and these images would be the same ones that they used in that tarot deck.
Yeah.
So they would be related with the square, with the triangle, different geometric patterns and stuff. So as Crowley learned all these things, he really wanted to incorporate that. And I believe it took him over 5 years or something like that for them to do it. So she would paint some of those cards. I think there's 3 different magician cards.
So the cards you have she painted all those?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
they are massive. And a few years ago, they did a couple art shows. They tour them out. They did an Australia one, and Crowley's paintings still go on like a little tour and stuff like that. And
really?
they bring some of her paintings on,
If that
on
ever
the
comes,
tour and
let
stuff.
us know.
Oh, shoot. If it was around here, man,
we'd
I'd
be
be
there.
going.
Yeah.
I'd
Where
be
is it,
going.
across the pond or something?
The last one I heard of that was like in Australia, I think, a few years back. So
Oh, so that's never made it here then.
Yeah,
no,
probably
some
making
have-
it
some-
up.
some, yeah, exactly. Some
You can
have.
actually still get some Crowley art, even if you're
Oh,
not
yeah.
super wealthy.
Oh, yeah.
There's a ton out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just this tarot deck is really, it connects a lot of theme, and the colors as well is another whole thing too. Multiple cards had different color schemes, or things were slightly arranged differently. And one of the other odd things from the creation of this deck is you think of like the Rider-Waite tarot as like one of the most common tarots that are out there.
Popular ones,
Yeah, exactly. But when Pamela Colma Smith or whatever, that when she did that, AE was in Freemasonry. He was in Golden Dawn. He was in these secret groups, but she was not in those groups, and she did not join those groups. And that's something where when Crowley brought on Lady Frida Harris to paint, he brought her into the groups, and he taught her these things so that she can interpret. And like we were talking about earlier, finding that center flow, she could flow things, and Crowley was able to just slightly edit and tweak things. And I believe in his Equinox series, they wrote a lot about the tarot that got condensed down into his tarot book. And then the big book of Thought that goes with that tarot deck came a little later. I don't even know if that was published when Crowley was even alive. I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't think a lot of the Crowley that we know actually existed in certain circles.
It was very small circles.
Time.
It was in inner order stuff. OTO.
So, how many tarot card decks are there?
Hundreds.
Countless.
There's countless.
Okay, what are the most popular ones? Name 3. How's that?
They've covered the 2 main ones.
Okay.
Yeah, everything after that's a blur. But those two, and the difference to me between the Rider-Waite and Crowley. Well, remember when Crowley was actually running, it was OTO, right?
Yeah.
He would not allow you to occupy an office unless you were able to ascend into that level of consciousness. Now, with his deck is designed in a way to facilitate that process. Everything else, to me, including the Rider-Waite deck, is just for fortune telling. There's a gimmick element to it. With Crowley, there is absolutely no gimmick element
It's
to
a deeper
it, and
symbolic
that's why
path, for
why he becomes offensive, because there's no gimmick element to it. So, I mean, there's scriptures in the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Trowel, the Vedic text. All these holy scriptures are going to have something that we find offensive. It has to.
Yeah.
And that's where Crowley got his level of consciousness from. He was at some point, aside from the carnival, at some moment in his life, he was able to ascend to divine consciousness because he left proof of it in that body of work throughout.
Dude, there's so much to read, so much to study.
Yeah,
it is amazing.
Yeah. Okay. I know I asked you before we started recording why meditation and yoga, because like I said, I want to know off the show, but then we'll let everyone know. I'm just getting into meditation, and yoga seems to me is just like exercise. Can you explain more for people that have that thought process like me?
Well, with yoga, the ancient Sanskrit word for yoga is union. So, it begs to ask, union with what? And so yoga is designed in a way that what it does is, just like, resistance work, it taxes the muscular system. Well, with yoga, it taxes the adrenal system. It taxes the nervous system. And the adrenal system as part of the system that allows higher consciousness to come in. So if those adrenal glands are not squeezed and taxed, light can't come in. So light happens not just on a spiritual level, but also on a physiological level. And so that's why yoga and holding certain positions is needed. And what happens is you get what's called, after a certain length of time with practicing yoga, you'll begin to feel like taste a metallic taste in your mouth. And what happens is now that spinal fluid is now mixing with, it's going back up the brain. And this is where,
like the Kundalini rising.
Exactly, the Kundalini rising, or where the Germans would call the vitriol. And and yoga helps facilitate that process with meditation. And so remember, yoga is also, it's a physical exercise, but you have Kundalini yoga, which is or pranayama breathing, which is a yoga. It's a breathing practice. And so the thing is, it's your stomach acts as a bellowing system. And what it does is it literally pushes that fire up your spine. It pushes that sexual urge up your spine till it lights up your individual chakra system, your pineal gland, hypothalamus, etc. And it just goes up the back and out the front. And so you'll see that played out in the ancient Egyptian headdress, where they would have the cobra and the vulture representing the divine masculine and the divine feminine. But because that fire has risen up the spine.
Huh. I never had anybody explain yoga like that. I probably still not going to do it, but it's a different insight to something that I'm just like, it's just exercise.
Yeah.
Well, you're thinking like hot yoga and like hot yoga.
Okay, I don't know if you guys know, but I see this guy Rodney Yee, who's a yoga guy. He has DVDs out and everything,
right?
And his whole thing is exercise. So that's why now I know somebody that knows the spiritual side of it, because I could not connect that.
But Wes, do you remember a little bit earlier, I've brought up twice that there's a lot of stuff that has been left in plain sight for the layman to interpret things?
Yeah. Sure.
Yoga is insanely one of those.
Yeah, it is.
That a lot of people are doing right now, and they don't kind of realize the full thing they're actually embracing. Recently,
I totally agree with you, because
recently I was actually working. I worked downtown, and I was somewhere getting lunch, and I was talking to a young lady who was just waiting for her food, and she was telling me she just came from a very different type of yoga class. I was like, oh, well, yoga's cool. Would you like to tell me about it? And it was actually the concept of death yoga, where they go in the room, they let go of
out of each other.
No. It's more of a death to ego. Actually, what's funny, she pretty much explained the Masonic third degree to me through a sense of yoga, and I could tell this chick wasn't esoteric, wasn't anything. She just happened to go to a class because it was available.
Wow.
And it
But
was
in her head, it was weird.
Yeah, well,
she told you, she was all like, well, it was kind of weird.
Well, yeah, you go in there and
you realize.
I've heard about goat yoga.
You're dying, you're reborn through the class, but it's one of those things. I'm like, she did this at a health club downtown. This was literally the basis of esoterics laid out for the layman to interpret and benefit from. And this stuff is layered all over, and once you see it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Death yoga. Well, what did you say?
That is so true. With becoming Freemasonry, there's
is that like the men that stare at goats or something?
In the world that you don't
get out of here.
You can't unsee it.
You can't.
Goat yoga is real. Wait a minute. Goat yoga.
You're still on the goat yoga.
Goat yoga, really?
Google it, yeah, for real.
Actually, yoga group does dog
yoga. Dude, there's all kinds of gimmicks.
You can do it, dude. Yeah, it exists right here in this city for sure. Yeah. Goat yoga.
Talk about something.
And it's not in a Masonic lodge.
No, but see,
what? It's not in the Masonic lodge.
No.
And so the reason, what you to his point, I mean, cut you off, but to your point, what happens is when you once you become a Freemason and then those symbols just start jumping out at you.
Oh, yeah.
It's because you're no longer prison, because remember, we live the entire the whole of our reality is symbolism.
It's the third freaking thing that comes up. Goat yoga. I just put goat. It says goat shoes. Why?
He
goat
is
shoes?
still wow.
And
He is
goat yoga.
blown away by this.
Let's let Wes have his moment with the goat yoga.
Yeah, Wes having his moment. Like what we're talking about.
I should have said
You should have
nothing.
put laughing goats in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Are you freaking?
All right, Wes, are you content with your Googling?
Look at it. There they are in the park.
This is
It looks like a petting zoo. Oh, pause it. We're going to get taken off YouTube. Man.
Dave, can you put up clips of this right now so we can all enjoy what Wes is enjoying?
I don't think we'd be allowed to do that. I don't think
Yeah.
that-
Yeah, if it's on
there's
YouTube,
like
it's
copyrights.
Oh, if it's on YouTube, it's fair
Right
use.
now,
the goats aren't doing anything, so I'm fast.
Well, the goats do the yoga, dude. You just watch them.
You just watch you buy a goat and you go,
kidding.
oh, yoga, stop, dude, stop,
You
don't do this.
yoga,
to him."
but you bring your goat with you.
It's pretty bad.
Oh gosh, I wish it was
Look at
break
that
time.
one, man.
Oh, that's too funny.
Hey,
Okay, all right. All right.
That's great.
We're devolving.
Oh, dude, this is already devolved, dude. It's already, dude. The tracks are right here.
Okay. We'll go back on the tracks real quick. Do you have something, Marty?
so the symbolism, though, that we all kind of see, and it's one of the real things in Masonry, where they have all those, like, you know, like history shows with the phrases decoded and all that stuff in there. But I mean, once you really start embracing all these ideas, and Masonry is great because it's everything in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much the Las Vegas buffet of ideas that have been passed down through time. And the more you do your Masonic degrees, and every book you read will bring you closer to another part of that degree. Every idea, every Masonry, you know, always will live as a celebration of every positive thought man has had since we've crawled out of the caves.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest part.
Yeah, it is. So it's almost like when you symbols carry a vibration.
Oh yeah.
And so we're attracted to a symbol that matches our vibration. And so it's kind of like, to me, before I was a Mason, it feels like you're stuck in a subjective reality. Once you finish that third degree, now you are in an objective reality. You can see things from an objective perspective, and it allows more symbols, the meaning of more symbols, to flow through, as opposed to trying to interpret them from that subjective reality. It's like, what does this personally mean to me from that reality, as opposed to what does this mean to the whole?
And think of all the references that are Masonic that are in our everyday world that you don't even think about. And then you go through the degrees and then you're like, whoa, somebody just ripped the blinders off. And you're like, whoa.
You know, and those go from something that's on a world level to something as simple as Blatt Spear had the triangle on the can, and then you wouldn't think about it. Then when you actually, the founder was a Mason, and he left that there.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And, you know, it's crazy to think
we
about.
leave our marks.
Yeah.
You know, we do. I mean, that's, you know.
And, you know, one concept you brought up, you know, the reality or how you look at things, you know, once you're not a Mason, then when you're a Mason. And I'm going to put this out to the four of you. I know myself, I've always been a Mason even before I did my degrees. It just took me a little bit to find what I already knew what was there.
Find home.
We had to go through some things before we did, you know, we had our own other little groups and stuff like that until we figured it out, you know.
But it was, for me, it was a lot of a homecoming. It was like I finally got to where where I knew I should have been. I just wasn't sure how to get there yet.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like you're home.
Yeah. No, it's very true. It is.
Oh, I felt right at home going into Lodge. Like, hey, this is nothing but what's going on? Sometimes I think I'm like, man, if only it was just a dash more hardcore.
Well, I think we all
look. You know, if you, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, keep going.
You know, if you really think about it, I mean, I we've mentioned this before. You know, if other countries, man, have it kind of, I don't want to say they have it right, but I mean,
they definitely have it more esoteric.
Dude. I mean,
the rooms of
I hate saying it like this, but like, it's kind of watered down a little bit.
I would totally agree, 100%, man.
And like seeing some of the things, talking to some of the brothers from other countries, and seeing, you know, like learning what they go through. You know, it's like, why didn't I have that here? Well, why did I go through that?
Absolutely.
Like, you know, it's like.
Well, yeah, what we're talking about, I just watched something on Amazon Prime. It's called The Endless Question. And it talks about a lot of things we were just saying. You know, you felt at home, but you just need to. There's something out there. And they kind of allude to it as a almost like a presence or a force. And they start talking about words and stuff and how words actually do affect you and images can affect you. And it's really neat. Yeah. I'm not giving it, enough credit, but I would watch it again.
I mean, if you really, I know it's kind of weird, like not weird, but like kind of going along with what you're saying. I know it's funny that South Park, they did that episode about curse words. Remember that episode? Yeah. Okay, that's real. Those words were banned or not like looked good upon for a reason. It's different, like things like that. And then also, I read something recently about like you should never make fun of yourself because words have power. If other people do it to you, that's one thing, you could brush that off. But when you do it to yourself, that's 100 times worse, and you're poisoning yourself.
And thinking something and then saying it and manifesting it by saying it, bringing that speech and like we're talking about vibration and all that kind of stuff. It does have a small effect on you.
It does. It really does. It really does. It affects your mind, and the mind's going to affect the body. Yeah. And then when you yourself are affected, you're going to affect those around you. And so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And what you kind of mentioned was just funny to me because we're living in the days of social media and we're living in a society where things don't always happen that anyone truly wants. And sometimes I want to choke people with my hands.
I like how you said it all calm.
Because they'll say something that is the most ludicrous comment to me, and that still attacks something like, oh, I'm sending prayers to France or wherever there may have been an issue.
Right.
And they're like, well, that's not doing anything. I'm like, if you don't literally think taking a couple seconds to refocus your mind, to share your positive energy with people that need it isn't a thing, like you're kind of an a-hole.
Yeah. No, I agree. I guess I'm an asshole. All right. With that, we are going to have
the Rosicrucians?
We'll get back to it. It's red. It's red.
It's red.
It went Sith on us. All right. We'll be right back. And we're back. We were talking about Kabbalah and yoga with goats. But obviously the show's ending. Your final thoughts on Kabbalah and where should somebody start if they're looking to get in Kabbalah or try to look into it just a little bit?
I would say look at it as a hobby. Don't take, because it's so
we shouldn't get into it like we see some of these people that are just so really deep into it.
Yeah. If you start off studying it as a hobby, it turns into an enormous amount of fun through a learning process. If you look at it as this is something I have to study, I need to make myself better, I want to transcend my ego, you're going to shut down. I started out as a hobby, and it keeps expanding, and the more it expands, the more fun it gets. And when you get into a lot of ego work, being a part of a fraternity, it just really becomes fun. Because now you've got a group of brothers that you guys are on the same path in a lot of ways. Masonry is the common denominator in your life, so to speak. And so it makes the ego work, it makes the studying of Kabbalah, and it makes all these different esoteric studies. They just become increasingly more fun, and without even realizing it, you're transcending ego, and you're just into these levels of consciousness that you had no idea exist, and you're with a group of brothers while you're doing it.
Now, can anybody do this? Do they just have to be Jewish?
Well,
I mean, I've had that question to me, so that's why I want to add. Some people don't know.
No, Anybody can do it. Throughout, time, there was a period of time where, the Jewish people kept the study of Kabbalah to themselves. But now if you go back into ancient history, the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life is an esoteric wisdom. It is the wisdom of King Solomon. So then who does it really belong to? Mm-hmm. If it's the wisdom of King Solomon.
I mean, realistically, everybody has some history within the concept of the Middle East.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's just kind of what it is.
But like for me, when I first heard of Kabbalah, I knew it was a Jewish practice.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody could do it. And then you start hearing,
You should be 40
celebrities and
years
stuff doing
old.
it.
You should have kids. There's like the real truth. So there's also multiple spellings of Kabbalah, I guess, that we didn't really kind of talk about that either. There's with the K, there's with the Q, there's with the C. There's the Christian Kabbalah. There's Hermetic Kabbalah.
There's a Christian Kabbalah?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
So there's
Wow, yeah, I did not know that.
There's multiple different stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's an extensive. It's a very extensive. Somebody I didn't even think about though, Lon Milo DeQuette. He also has a tarot deck that's out that has a lot of Kabbalistic ties to it, and he also has some classes that he does that are very cool. But he has the Chicken Bone Kabbalah, which is a very good basic book for starters.
The Chicken Kabbalah.
Kabbalah.
It's called Chicken Kabbalah. I bought it not too long ago. He wrote it under one of his pen names, which is
it's Rabbi something or another.
Rabbi.
Is it with a K?
No, I think it's with a Q.
With his book.
Yeah.
Is it a K? Is it?
I can't
doesn't
think of it.
I think it's a Q.
Okay.
I have it at home. It's
at home
good. It's
now,
cool.
I can't picture.
And he has a second one, I think, that just came out.
The
or is
son
coming
of
out.
it's called the Son of Chicken Kabbalah.
Son of Chicken
Yeah.
Bro, Lon Milo DeQuette, he's a Mason.
Yes, absolutely.
But to go back to that original thought, he approaches Kabbalah and all his esoteric studies from that hobby perspective.
And like you said, it's very funny.
It's very fun.
It's humorous. There's a lot to learn. And he doesn't get caught up on the pronunciation and the things. It's more about you developing it.
Right.
And he phrases things in a way, if you're like a novice or a journeyman, you're still going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
He has I hate to say like a down-home way of talking to you, but he really does.
But he does.
Yeah.
But he
It's
does.
from that funky band
he
music
meets
he
you.
makes.
He
Yeah.
meets you at your level.
Yeah.
He meets you at your level, which is a really good teacher.
Yeah. He's been
So-
teaching for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Well, I learned more about Kabbalah today.
I think sometimes with Kabbalah, when you think of it strictly as Jewish, I mean, it also falls into, well, Jesus was a Jew and all, all this and all that.
Since when?
Well, I think there's been a lot of concepts with Judaism that's mixed up with like currently what Israel and a lot of other things are, but there's actually a lot more to that, with the general idea of enlightenment through time.
Right.
To be honest with you, I ain't gonna lie. The only thing I knew about Kabbalah was if you're rich and famous, you get a red bracelet. Seriously, that's all I
Like
really,
Madonna.
All of them, they're all on the TV. Oh, look.
Yeah, but that's a celebrity cult stuff.
Yeah,
they
it
get
is.
those
It
guys
is.
with everything.
But is that a real thing in
Yes.
Kabbalah? It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just
It's-
like celebrity Kabbalah or
It's
whatever.
but it is a difference between the Kabbalah that is promoted for public consumption than actual Kabbalah, which is the spiritual science that says there's only two things in existence: the creator and the vessel, or the creator and the creature and the light and the vessel. So when you think about it in terms of that, it's at a level that Freemasonry, we can digest a little bit different than what celebrities with a red bracelet on is going to digest as a reminder to subdue their passions. That's part of our, structure.
We've been there, done that.
You see what I mean?
So, can you say that Kabbalah has their own clandestines?
That would be the best way to describe it.
Like when I heard all that, I'm like, wait a minute.
well, no, because they do. There's a lot of fake gurus.
That's the
getting
best
paid
way
on
to
the game.
describe it.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
There we
Yeah,
go.
you
That's
put
a
it,
good
you have to put
wrap-up.
it in our terminology.
There you go. Yeah. All
And
right.
then it clicks, but that's the best way to describe it.
That's too funny. Oh,
Well, with that, it comes time again for shouts out and shots out. So, Gerald, do you have a shout out you want to give to anybody? Or are we putting you on the spot?
No, you're not gonna put me on a shot. I'd like to give a shout out to my 3-year-old son, Gaius. He stayed home from school today, and I stayed with him. He had a terrible day. On a good day, it's like living with a dictator. You know what I mean? Like but today it was like I didn't know if I was gonna have a head today. He was not having a good day, so I want to give Gaius a shout out.
All right.
That's great. Very cool.
Well, everyone, this shout out is going out to Gaius.
Hope tomorrow's a better day.
Yeah, hope it's a better day.
Tomorrow's a better day, buddy. Love you.
Cheers, Gerald. Thank you for coming on.
Cheers.
buddy.
Yes, thank you for
so
coming on.
much, sir.
Thank you guys for having me. There you go.
Yeah, of course I did it.
go.
Same time.
Same time.
Oh,
Oh, beautiful.
Always a good time doing that.
oh yes.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, that's the end of this episode. Learn more about Kabbalah. Check out our shirts we're selling. Please buy them. We're poor. Thanks again for watching. And of course, we're going to be back with more episodes. Thanks again.